when you start to look at my work, hopefully you see the design of it. You see the silhouette and the first and foremost the design. Then as you get closer, you start to see the craft and how it's put together. I pride myself on being a craftsman and taking a lot of putting a lot of attention into how I connect things together. Early on in my career, everything was cold connected, bolted together, riveted together, and then later on I started doing welding and started making things that were much more permanent connection. But even early on in a case like this, everything was hand wound. I didn't have a welder at the time. A piece like this, when you first look at it, it's like, oh, it's a beautiful bowl or platter, and then you look closer and you see how it's made, and then suddenly there's the realization those are all tin can lids. So I then started really expanding the idea of recycled street sweeper bristles as a woven, as part of a woven aesthetic. And I started creating a whole line of vessels, and the vessels, and my good dog who was always there with me doing the hunts for the stuff. But the vessels and baskets I started to become known for, and to this day I still am. I consider myself a weaver. In pieces like this, there's a recycled hardwood bottom and the recycled street sweeper bristle tops, and the recycled hardwoods are in the boards. The recycled hardwoods are all coming out of one particular dumpster here in West Los Angeles. And I'll get to more of that in a second. But this is my version of a mandala. I saw one earlier in some of the slides. This piece is 6.5 feet tall. So you'll see the boats in the other part of the offices. And the boats, they started as a lot of ideas do, with a whole different direction. I was looking for a way to fill a square hole. And I had a box that I wanted a rounded cap to, and I decided, well, I was going to take a salad bowl and use this convex surface to be able to fit into that, so I had to cut the sides off of it. And when I was cleaning up, there was that aha moment of suddenly I had these two halves, I put them together and said, well, there's a something. And part of my career, I've just made it on being open to innovation, being open to an idea, and letting it just have legs and go and take me where it will. So the boats have become a fairly popular thing. We use them at the Hotel Sofitel for an installation. But I've done it to date. I've done over 70 installations of the boats in private residences as well as hotels and whatnot. But take this idea of reuse and kind of flip it around. And if I were to say to you, well, I use coffee stirrers all day long, and there's a certain ew factor. And one of the things I learned earlier in my career is that if you present something as trash to begin with, that you're fighting an uphill battle to get over the fact that you're dealing with trash. So my approach has always been design first. I present an idea and the silhouette of an idea in a very graphic manner. And then you look closer and see the craft of it. And then, hopefully, tertiary to all that, you see that it's made out of recycled material. And here's more pieces with the recycled coffee stirrers. But I started moving away from the coffee stirrers because there was too much of an ew factor to them. That people just couldn't get over that they had been used. And even though I wash them, I dry them in the sunlight, and they're completely safe, I still had a hard time getting people over that fact. So I started using cast-off recycled end cuts from woodworking shops. And I take them back to my shop and I cut my own veneers and I make forms out of those. And this piece is in the other room also. So the wood vessels are wonderful, but then the street sweeper bristles are very pliable, and I'm able to make shapes that at times become figurative. And then here's another display case that was made using the street sweeper bristles. And then some pieces also have mechanical aspects to them. So don't. Now, the birth of my first child encouraged me to explore a lot of different forms, and a lot of forms that were reminiscent of some of the early ultrasounds I was seeing with my child. And so some of, you'll see in the history of my work, you'll see this shape coming up over and over again, and it really references back to some of those first ultrasounds I saw. More formalized basket. And the baskets have taken on playful tone too, where I'm integrating old vintage toys into them, and once again blurring the line between the found and the fabricated. I recently did a house series. We started renovating our house, and as the nascent series, the series that are about the ultrasounds and then some, we started renovating our house, and my house at one point was a whirling mass of debris and the early stages of renovation. And as you can see here, the scale of this piece, but it also has a kinetic aspect to it too, where the center of the sphere, the center sphere does spin around. And there's a playful quality to the work that I think also is illustrated in this piece too, where I decided to make my own little walking machine. Very simple gear mechanism fabricated inside of an old pipe rack humidor with some children's shoe lasts. And this is another mechanical piece that I recently made for the Zimmer Children's Museum. And it also, a myriad of things that happened. But I wanted to end here and remind everybody that, as Francie said before, trash is the failure of imagination. And if you just think a little outside the box, you can go a long way with it. Thank you.